Right, Hayden, we've not done introduction, like, little skits we used to do.
Yeah.
We've not done one in about, I don't know, like literally 12 episodes.
I really like doing them.
We should do them. Like maybe this will end up being one. I don't know. But but this is one thing.
Yeah.
We've not asked him in a while.
Yeah.
Don't ask him to do much. We've not got an actual sponsor on the podcast yet or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it does help when they give us a 5-star review and follow us.
Ooh. Are we going to go there?
Yep.
It's a touchy subject.
But
touchy subject.
Listen. Someone is unhinged enough to listen to a podcast and actually not. It happened. We talk about an Apple podcast. It's happened on Spotify now. We're 4.9.
I don't know what to say
We're
about it.
We're 4.9.
What troll? What troll thinks
I mean, it can't be a real review
that we are not a 5-star review?
Well, we know it.
And I'll tell you right now, we did the maths. We sat there and we did the maths, and we found out that it was a 1-star review because Spotify does not show you.
We think it is because it would be rounded up.
We did the maths.
We didn't notice it and then immediately figured who did that. Listen, it's obviously the same person who was a 1-star review.
Same classic person.
It's weird because we did do a little moan every week as well.
We did.
So
we always seem to moan
it's weird
about SLT.
Yeah.
And then weirdly,
yeah,
that episode's rubbish.
Is it a 1-star podcast?
Is it?
Is it?
Don't know.
Well, you've listened this far into this introduction, which we have done off the cuff to try and beg of you guys. It helps us so much. Please give us a review. Please give us a follow. And please, actually, you know what they can do?
What's that?
Share the podcast.
They can.
That's the number one thing. If you enjoy the podcast, share it with someone else. And I thought we just stick that as a little intro.
Yep.
Little intro. You've moved away from me for a reason.
It's just last time you took the mick out of me for not speaking into the microphone. So if I look at you, I need to be still facing this microphone.
Right. Too long introduction. Give us a 5-star review. Follow us on wherever you get your podcast and share it with a friend.
Yeah.
And should we get into the episode?
Yeah, let's do it.
Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Teach Sleep Repeat. My name is Dylan.
And my name is Hayden.
And I don't think any of those syllables actually work together. I just spoke then. Sorry, it was quick.
I don't know what you said.
Is anyone listening right now in anything other than 1 times? When you listen to stuff, do you whack up the speed? Because I'm impatient. I whack up the speed.
I have started to.
Yeah.
Since we were introduced to those Loom videos we got sent, where you can just put the speed on like 1.5.
No. And do you know what's great about Loom? It tells you what the new length of the video is.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, how far can I go before I no longer understand what's happening?
Yeah.
So I am fully trained now at 1.5. I can do 1.5 easy.
Well, when we listen back through this podcast, when we're editing it, we do generally listen at 2 times speed.
Yeah.
But sometimes we realise we've zoned out and have to go back and like, hang on, we didn't actually.
That's what we really rely on. Mess ups like us being really obvious because otherwise there'll be something kept in. I think we got this far without leaving anything in. That will get us
one day
the sack or something.
The sack.
But yeah, like it's a football manager.
Sack.
You got the sack, man. Anyway, hello guys, welcome back. Yeah, I mean that took a turn then. But yeah, listen to your podcast in 1.2. It means you get to not only give us the plays, but you get done more quickly. So make sure you're doing that.
This is a chore.
What are you doing? Watching this now and listening. Anyway, Hayden, hello.
Yeah, hello, mate.
How's your week been?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
I'm joking.
decent, not bad.
I've got a couple of little things.
Okay, cool.
It's been quite an eventful week since we last recorded. I've been away on a 3-day stag do.
Oh, I'm acting surprised. I know you have.
Yeah. Where did you go? Are you going to ask me where I went?
Where did you go, Hayden?
And pretend you don't know that I went to Liverpool.
Did you go to Liverpool?
I did go to Liverpool.
Wow. What made? Why did they choose Liverpool? It's a long way. For anyone listening, we live about 300 miles away from Liverpool. So, obviously the stag has connections with Liverpool, has family up there.
No.
No.
I don't actually know why.
Oh.
I think he just wanted to go there.
Fair enough.
And we was all like, yeah, all right. Never been to Liverpool. Why not?
Drag everyone up 300 miles. That's
I'll tell you what, though. Have you been there?
Are you joking?
No.
You know, I lived about 10 miles away from Liverpool for the first 8 years of my life.
It's 10 miles away from Liverpool.
You think I've not been?
I don't know.
Oh, yes, I went to Liverpool like the end of last year.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Anyway, yeah, I've been to Liverpool.
Well, it's cool. I really liked it. It's very modern.
It's
like really. It basically for me, as someone who's like afraid of London because it's just so like opposite to where we live. It was like the version of London that I wish existed.
Right. Okay.
It looked really cool. Had the big architecture. Had all the cool big buildings and loads of stuff to do. But was nowhere near as busy and like compact. It was a lot more open.
Was it good?
Which I really liked. Yeah.
Okay.
Very cool.
Was that the end of it?
Yeah, that's the end of that.
Okay, cool. You're not going to give us any, really cool, stag do, stories, or does what happened in Liverpool stay in it?
We went on the Beatles tour. Obviously. Liverpool.
How old was the stag? Can we just
Oh yeah, okay, all right, fair enough. So the stag was. So my girlfriend's dad is the stag, and he's in his 50s, and most of the men that we went with were in their 50s.
There was a 25-year gap.
Yeah. I was the odd one out. Although we did make the joke that I still managed to go bald quicker than all of them. 25 years on me.
Anyone watching the group was like, yeah, that's about right.
Yeah, just looking at them. Yeah. So, the age difference was quite funny. But I've got to that point now in life where it didn't really feel that weird. No. I think if I was maybe like 22, 23... And
still
they
bald.
Still bald. And they were 50-odd. Yeah. I think I would have been like, oh, I'm completely different from that. But,
Well, funny enough, we were actually in London last week. And I must say, guys, but you live in this city, then I'm sorry, but it is not for me. It is not for me. Like, I am so overly stimulated just like existing in that place. Just, like, turn around the corner. There's 7,000 people down there outside. And like pubs are like packed. But then there's like a 2-meter radius around all the pubs of more people with pints just drink. I was like, oh.
And I'm sorry, but the tube, right? I don't mind the tube, it's fine. But it's so common that it has that horrendous screeching noise. And you look around and everyone's just like, totally chilled. And it's like the worst possible noise that could exist.
I was thinking that we're literally about to implode. Like, why is it making that sound?
Horrendous. Like
London has just been like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's just the what? It's just the ear screeching.
Oh yeah, we're between Victoria Line and Bakerloo Street. Yeah. So it's just the old screecheroony. That's between what you like. Screecher. These bloody tourists thinking we're gonna crash.
So that is just horrible. I don't understand how people can just get on that all the time.
So hot.
Yeah, the heat.
Honestly, if you live in London, fair play to you, but it's not for me.
Stop it.
It's not,
Stop it.
Could you all move?
Honestly.
Could you all sort it out, please? Seriously.
Honestly.
Anyway, what else this week? Because we have obviously been teaching.
In school, a couple of things. One thing that I think you'll find quite funny. First one, just a funny story. A child came into my classroom today from my class at lunchtime. They shouldn't really be coming in, but I was just sort of looking at him thinking, what is he doing? Going to his bag, doing something. And he's a good kid. And I said, you all right? He turned around just as he was about to go back out with his hat on. He's like, oh, yeah. I was like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, well, we've just been dissecting before I go to secondary school. I was like, what are you talking about? He was like, well, let's just say the head of the bee is now in my bag. Bye. Ran off. Just ran outside. He came in to put the head of the bee in his bag. And I left it. And I thought, fair enough. His parents will enjoy that.
Not only has he done that, you've asked him and he's told you.
Yeah, he was quite happy. He was quite proud.
I will tell you exactly. Yeah. I've got a bee story for this week.
What's your bee story?
And I think I'm wondering if it's linked or not. Because earlier in the week, I was on playground duty, and this child just came up to me and goes, "Excuse me, sorry, could we please have some water and sugar?" I'm like, "No, I know exactly what this is for. Yeah. Like, why? I just I said, why? Well, what's going on? Well, there's a bee. It needs some help." I walked over to this guy's, like 5 kids stood around this thing on the floor, right? They put leaves on top of the bee. Obviously, otherwise it would be...
It doesn't have a head, but it needs some water.
They took it off. Dead bee. It was dead. And I was like, oh, I don't know if water and sugar is going to help. Because...
that bee is DEAD.
It's dead. And I just couldn't say it, though. I couldn't say it to them. I was like, I'm not sure. Like, giving them a look, and they're like, yeah. I was like, has he moved? No.
Crying already. No, yeah. What? Has he moved? Tell us, Mr. Price.
He's not moved. He's not moved in a while. Ooh, he is lying on his back with his legs in the air.
Bees don't normally do that. It could be hibernating.
But... yeah, with his legs up. Dead. Completely dead. Yeah. I was like, I think maybe we'll just leave him to it, shall we?
Let's see. Should we see, kids? Let's see if the dead bee's alive. I mean, the bee's alive.
I wonder if it's like,
same bee. Same bee. It might have been. They might have. No, you know what kids are like. They would have stashed it away. And then that boy in my class then was like, oh, hello.
What's that? Mr. Price, a dead bee? I'm never get my scalpel.
I've always wondered what a bee's head looks like.
Also, what's a bee's head? Is it not just its
I
body?
know. That's what I thought. I don't
the
know.
bee?
And how have they dissected it? I didn't even think about that. It's tiny.
With his teeth. At what point does it stop being the bee's head? It's just a ball of...
I don't know. I kind of wish I'd asked to see it.
Oh, jeez.
It was one of those moments where I just couldn't be bothered. I was like, okay, bee's head in your bag. That's fine. Just deal with it. Whatever.
There is them moments as a teacher where you're like, I need to weigh up here whether it's worth my effort.
Yeah, exactly.
Or just leave
Exactly.
it to it.
I was like, eat my lunch or deal with this. I'm gonna go and eat my lunch. Anyway, so that was that. Another quick story because I think you'll like this one.
Okay.
So, in my maths class, I haven't had a story about my maths
dart
class.
maths.
I know I haven't done anything like that.
No.
I haven't had blow dart maths or anything that mad this year. However, I have, being a very passionate maths teacher, I have had moments where I've sort of gone off script for a minute because the kid, just because it's like there's something related, and I'm like, I kind of want the kids to know this.
Sure.
And we were looking at the good old doubling factors and halving factors and how that doesn't change the answer because we were trying to find factor pairs of numbers. And I just went off on it for ages, right?
So for anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about, it's the idea that factors numbers you multiply together. So if you have 16 multiplied by 25, that's the same as 8 if you half the 16, double the 25, 8 times 50. 8 times 50 is way easier to do than 16 times 20. So it's like efficiency strategy.
Yeah, exactly that. So the kids will know. I'd say to them, I'd give them something like 16 times 25, and I say, solve that. And they go pick up their pens. I'm like, no, solve it in your head. You've got 5 seconds. Off you go.
Yeah.
And they're like, what do you mean? So I use that to then show them. And they were like, it's like one of your YouTube videos, like learning, because we do like educational stuff on YouTube.
Yeah.
And now since then, they've coined it as it's Mr. Stevens mini YouTube time. And they're like, cool, can we have more mini YouTube times?
What a way to hook them.
I know, it was great. Because it wasn't really like, it was just a separate thing. It didn't really lend itself to a whole lesson, but it was a kind of cool maths thing that's worth
like a
knowing.
segment to like our podcast or something.
Yeah, exactly that.
It's mini
YouTube time.
Don't do that, no.
It's mini YouTube time. Yeah. So now we've got a thing called, and one of the kids today, because I didn't do it, I just did a normal lesson. They were like, are we going to have a mini YouTube time today? And I was like, damn.
So is mini YouTube time simply you say something you've done in the YouTube video, or do you show them the video?
It was the way I was presenting it. I was doing it in quite like a bit of a silly way. I was like really over the top, and one of them was like, it's like in a YouTube video, like I was presenting a video.
Yeah. Because all the other time you sat there going 4 + 4.
Yeah, it's that much.
Do it.
Yeah.
Mini YouTube. Yeah, after you've done your math stuff. Right.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So I thought that was quite sweet because I know that's the kind of thing you'd probably do as well.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Anything about in your week that you haven't mentioned?
I've mentioned moving house in time. Don't know about that.
Didn't mention that last 2 episodes.
That's great. But I do have internet now. So this is the first time where we've done the podcast where we had the choice whether to do it face to face or not.
Yes.
And overwhelmingly people keep choosing face to face.
Yeah.
I prefer face to face.
Yeah.
So we're going to carry on doing it like this, and eventually we'll have a actual little space, I hope.
Yeah. Don't know what the plan is yet, guys, but we would like to do something.
And if you guys keep listening and it's it carries on being popular, then that is something we'll do.
Yeah.
Because we enjoy it, but if we put the effort in to do something like that, then if you guys want to listen to it, absolutely brilliant. A couple of things that just made me laugh. I'm not going to go too deep into politics. But
here he goes.
No.
How long did he last?
No.
15 minutes.
We had 15 minutes on a Tuesday. But I'm going to mention it because it really made me laugh. Gillian Keegan, again, anyone who doesn't know, the education secretary in charge of education in the country, was talking about the whole rack thing, the concrete stuff, which was a couple of weeks ago, and how we're reacting to it, and the fact that a lot of children have to be in like temporary accommodation now, basically, of their the porta cabins, essentially.
Yes, of course.
So she was talking about it, and she decided to say this thing, which she thought was some kind of really cool win. And it was like, you could see the way she was saying it. And actually, she said this, she goes, and you know what? I was actually in a school recently talking to some children, and they were in their porta cabin, and they said they actually prefer the porta cabin to their regular classrooms. And I was like, She was like, as if to say, so clearly the porta cabins are great. I was like, or could it be? Could it maybe be that the classrooms are terrible? Yeah. She listens going, you prefer the porta cabins to the classrooms? I'll tell that to the House of Parliament. That's something I want to post about as the education secretary. The thing we actually planned for them and built for them. Yeah, porta cabin. Much better.
we do, madame, because the porta cabins have roofs on them that don't leak. Oh, well.
That made me laugh because she said it in such a smarmy way. And I'll have you know, they prefer the awful bit. I was like, okay.
Right.
Anyway, sounds good. And the other thing, mildly related, I suppose, to teacher, is they've set up another workload task force for teachers. It's got a whole bunch of people in there, SLT, teachers, blah, blah, blah. Again, set up by the government to investigate workload. Don't investigate it. Listen to our podcast about workload. Don't investigate it. There's no mystery here. There's no delving to do. Ooh, what is the problem of teaching? Could it be literally everything we've ever mentioned before? Maybe we can start with that. Don't spend money on investigation.
Yeah.
Let's just actually sort something out. I saw someone, I wonder what you think about this, said that they think we should stop thinking about workload in terms of things teachers have to do, and start thinking about workload as an attitude and a environment and a attitude towards what we're expected to do.
Right.
And I was like, at first I was like, well, it is just stuff we've got to do though, isn't it? But they meant like we have to fundamentally from the top down change our attitudes towards this job. And the point was like, because at the minute the job is simply, and we've experienced this, this needs doing. That's the end of the conversation.
Yeah.
This needs doing. Because I've already got a job, and that's teaching. That's doing my planning and my teaching and my marking.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about marking. Yeah. And it's like, but you got to do this thing.
Have I?
Okay. When? Got to get done. How many times does that happen where someone's like literally introduced something like, we're going to start doing this. I know it's tough. I know it's tricky. But
you go.
But go and do it, please.
Yeah.
It just it winds me up. I don't have any faith at all in the task force.
I used to be a bit more susceptible to just being like, okay, do you know what? We're driving standards up, and that's part of our job. You know, we are doing the best thing all the time. I get it, right? But I was speaking to one of the guys on the stag do.
Yeah.
On the train. It was a really nice conversation, and I was just expressing some of my feelings, and he, as someone that's not in the teaching world, was also expressing some of his opinions as well, just as an onlooker.
That's good though to hear.
Yeah, it was really interesting, and his kind of like feedback as someone who's really interested in politics and all that sort of stuff he was like, we need to sort the system out. He was in his opinion, like the strikes and not strikes actually, but the pay thing. He was like, that's just a plaster.
Yeah, I agree.
He was like, because it doesn't really fix anything. You'll just be paid a bit more and everyone will still be unhappy and then want to be paid more next time.
Yeah.
And from my perspective, I made the point of saying I used to be more up for doing like loads of extra in my own time as like goodwill, because I felt like almost, I don't know, pride. It's not pride. It's, I don't know, something. I felt something. Yeah. I was like, I should.
Yeah.
And then I got up, and then every single year, what I got as a reward from our government, from our country, was a pay cut.
Yeah.
And eventually it's just like, actually, do you know what? No. Yeah. Like, if seriously, like, you really want, like, what a slap around the face. It's like clapping for the NHS.
Yeah.
It's like, we really need you to do this whilst taking away money out of our pockets. It's like, okay. I don't actually care if anyone thinks teachers are paid too much or too little. It's irrelevant. Yeah. Because a pay cut is a pay cut. It has connotations in it. We could be paid £1 million a year. Having it cut to 900 grand a year would still be essentially someone saying,
you're worth less now.
We think you're worth less actually than what you were before, so we're taking it away. And that's the way I view it now. So I'm more bitter about it. I'm just like, no.
Why would, in line with pay cut, we do more stuff? What backwards reasoning is that?
Well, you've been quite passionate, haven't you, about like the whole point of striking?
Yes, I say
about
again.
Workload, and it's just like, are we just
going to say it again for anyone listening? Because I know for a fact there were people listening to this for the first time. We always get new listeners every week. But everyone who's heard it before, I please implore you to be that person who's a bit snarky sometimes in your workplace. To be that person who's a bit, pushes the boat a bit, but defends like basic rights and stuff. And just reminds everyone that we have not resolved the issue of the strike action. It was for pay in line with inflation and reduced workload. We didn't get pay in line with inflation, and nothing's changed for workload.
Yeah, it might have done for some schools.
For some schools, absolutely.
But from a systemic level, it hasn't. Which goes back to your point. Right? So what is this thing about then, this task force?
It is set up a task force, and it's really interesting because it's full of basically SLT teachers, government officials, etc. And again, someone replied to it. It's really, really interesting to me. It's all about retention as well. Basically, it's like they do see workload as a way to improve retention, because that is the main thing driving people out of the job. I love teaching. If in 5 years I'm still teaching under the current system, I'm a complete failure. Because I shouldn't be doing. What it means, not everyone's a failure who does it, but my attitude now to teaching is either something has to drastically change or I won't be there. I won't be doing it in 5 years. And I know I'm good at teaching. I know you're good at teaching. I know so many amazing teachers who will leave because there's no retention scheme. So workload is a way they can tackle retention. But yeah, someone said as well, why do we constantly with these workforces fill it with people who are teachers and SLT and people in the system? They were saying what we need to do is look at other sectors where retention and recruitment is really good, get their expertise, almost like that guy you were talking to. Yeah. He's coming from the outside thinking, well, this is clearly broken. Yeah,
like a business mindset.
Something from a successful place where we've seen a track record of it happening. Yeah. Maybe in a place where retention's been fantastic, but pay has stalled. And thinking, okay, well, if we literally can't afford to pay teachers anymore, then we have to repay them somehow. And that could be with a more easy lifestyle. So, if we're going to take a pay cut in real terms, but my workload goes down and I can enjoy my time more, then it's still, I've got to pay my mortgage and stuff, but at least I can see some kind of give and take there, something that's logical. Something has to give because it has literally been 15 years nearly of erode, and genuinely workload going up.
Yeah.
And I know
it's more work to do, and we're going to cut your pay because it's insulting.
Yeah.
I feel insulted. Like I take it personally, and it's ridiculous. I'm being a child, but I do. I take it personally, and I'm like, and I get like about it, But I don't know. People are better than me that don't. They can look past it.
But I think what we need to remember is, and look, the people listening to this might be like, oh, you're just moaning. You're not an economist. You don't know what you're going on about.
We do moan a lot. If you like moaning, guys, you're in the right place. Because we do get into a bit of moaning.
Hey, guys, give us 5 stars.
I'll be honest.
5-star moaning.
There was Rishi giving us that 1 star. He's fed up of listening. Oh, anyway.
I forgot my train of thought completely.
I'm sorry, I didn't even know what you were saying. It was as usual, I wasn't listening.
You just really wanted to get angry. Oh, gosh.
Anyway,
I've genuinely completely forgot my train of thought.
Harvest Festival, eh?
Right, guys, we're going to play the jingle. We're going to come back with some memes about assembly.
Dylan, I would like to start this segment with a bit of a shout out.
I know what you're going to say.
Okay, to one of our earliest fans, old Sandy.
Sandy,
if you're still listening, hope you're still around.
How's Danny Zuko? Is that right?
What?
Isn't it Sandy from Greece?
Oh, I was like, what are you talking about?
Sandy?
I don't know, not watched it. Anyway.
You've not watched Greece?
Oh, I think I have, but I can't remember any of it. I watched it as a kid.
You can't remember what you had for dinner today with me 10 minutes ago.
I don't know, I remember what you left for though. Not gonna.
I don't eat all my dinner all the time, all right?
He's a child. Yeah. Sandy, thanks for listening.
What I did want to talk about this little bit, because it is that time of the year, and anyone who's ever been in school, you'll be seeing the memes online. Thank you for the harvest. It's harvest time. It's harvest assembly.
Yeah.
And we do obviously sing an assembly every week, and it's just it stays in my head. You know what we're like, Hayden.
Yeah.
I'm the worst for it in the world. Oh, any jingle, any advert that I've seen, it will stay in my head and ring around. And I literally go home. Cabbages are green. Broccoli and beans. Is it cabbages are green? Cabbages and beans.
No, wait.
Cabbages and beans.
Cauliflower fluffy.
No, I'm thinking of a different one.
Wait, what are you thinking of? That's the same song.
No, it's not. It's not.
Cabbages,
Hayden,
oh, yeah.
There is a plethora of harvest. And roasted potatoes. It's another harvest festival.
Yeah, I'm with you now.
When you're in assembly, right?
Yeah.
Do you join in?
I was about to ask you the same thing. I want to know what teacher you are. I used to. I don't know why.
I don't know.
But I don't anymore.
Oh,
I sit there and I pretend.
I'm watching you.
I pretend I'm watching them as if that's an... So if any kid looks at me and judges me and is like, why isn't he singing? They will look at me and be like, oh yeah, he's scouring. He's got his eyes over there. There's no one there. There's no one there doing anything wrong. But I'm like this. Looking intently as if I've seen something. Completely making it up.
I was in assembly the other day and there were 6 adults in the room, obviously, right? Every single one of them was both singing and doing actions, and I'm here like this, right? So if you're watching, I'm gonna look at the camera
yeah, to the kids.
I'm looking at no one, by the way.
Yeah, me. Across the room. Oh, but the problem is, I do find with our voices particularly,
Cuts through.
It does, and the kids turn around and look at you, and then I'm embarrassed. Yeah. So like, just put things up. You be the kids. Okay. You sing, okay? And then I'm going to come in with my voice and just
Give me oil in my lamp.
Keep me burning. Give me oil in. And they're like, whoa, who's this guy? Who's this guy?
It's the Go Compare man.
Go Compare.
No, but anyway, it's Harvest Festival time. There's loads of memes online and stuff. I've seen so many different things, but it's so relatable for people. Everyone knows it. And I was singing one earlier that's different, and you started singing Cauliflower's Fluffy. I want to do a little thing. I'm going to test you, okay? No. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the lyrics up to Cauliflower Fluffy. So it goes, cauliflower's fluffy and cabbage is green.
I got that bit.
Right, I'm going to say the next bit, and you're going to tell me what they're described as. Okay, so cauliflowers are...
fluffy.
Cabbages are...
green.
Strawberries are...
I don't know. I don't know.
Right, you've got to say what comes to your head, okay? Strawberries are...
ripe. I don't know. It was in assembly today, and I don't know.
Ripe.
Strawberries. No, it's
sweeter. Sweeter
than I've ever seen.
Beetroots.
Purple. Is it?
Yeah.
Yes.
And onions.
White.
All grow steadily
through the night. I don't know. What is it? Is it
day and night?
Day and night. Like yeah.
Right again.
Oh. It's so hot in here.
The apples are
green.
Ripe.
Ripe.
The plums are
green. No, that doesn't make sense.
Red.
The plums are red.
The broad beans are sleeping in a
blankety bed.
Blackberries are
also ripe.
And rhubarbs are
still ripe.
Marrows are
ripe. Pineapples are ripe.
Gooseberries
ripe and
lettuces fat. Radishes round and runner beans
flat.
The apples are ripe.
We're still going.
The plums are red. The broad beans are sleeping
in a blankety bed. Hey,
orangey.
Carrying on.
Orangey.
Carrots
and turnips.
Peeled.
Cream apparently.
Cream. Oh yeah, I remember seeing that.
Reddening.
Potatoes. Tomatoes. Not potatoes.
That used to be green. Brown
onions. Potatoes.
In little heaps. Down in the darkness where the...
something sleeps. Celery sleeps.
The apples are...
ripe.
The plums are...
already forgotten. Red.
The broad beans are sleeping
in a blankety bed.
If they're still listening...
It's embarrassing because it was on in assembly today.
And I know for a fact on the board there's pictures and words.
Yeah. I even joined in for a little bit today. I actually did a bit for like 10 seconds.
That's my favourite thing. Getting you to finish off hymns is a new section.
Getting me to finish off anything that relies on my memory.
Remember it.
Oh, God. Well, anyway, enjoyed that. That's worth a 5-star, right?
I want you to please lead a singing assembly one time. Just do your own lyrics.
I'll make it up.
The broad beans are sleeping in the
right
back of the car. Oh, man.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed that.
That was something I thought off the cuff would be funny, and that was funnier than I have.
Yeah, and now the temperature in here has risen to about 50 degrees.
It's like completely correlated to how much of a good time we're having. I was freezing earlier.
The wetness of your face is unreal.
I'm so wet.
If any of the customers are watching, it's a real treat.
Should we do another little quick jingle and actually
get on to freshen up? Yeah,
freshen up and go on to what the actual... We've done it again. It's very fun.
Okay,
we haven't been talking about
come back because we're going to talk about marking.
See you soon. Right, guys, before we carry on and get into what we're actually talking about in this episode, I just want to remind you guys that you can follow us on our socials at Teach Sleep Repeat Podcast on Instagram and Threads. Email us at... I'm still reading from that singing voice. Email us at teachsleeprepeatpod@gmail.com. And, I'm going to delete our Twitter soon because I can't do it.
Oh, what?
X. I can't do it anymore.
Really?
Yeah.
You were getting really into that.
I know, but I just hate it. Cesspit. Horrible. Ran by an egomaniac. Idiot. I'm just going to delete a thing, I see. We'll see. Okay. We'll see. But you know what? I'm not on social media that much anyway. Best place to find us is Instagram. That's the place to find us and all that good stuff. But anyway, Give us 5 stars and follow us as well. Anyway.
Do you know what we do like?
What do we like?
We do like people writing into us.
Yeah, I know. And do you know what? We've not been on top of that because I have had a couple.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's just been so hectic in time. So we will get back on the stories. We've got at least 2, I think.
I don't know if you told them he's moving as well.
Go through.
He's moved house.
We're moving house, guys. And I'm a little bit stressed. But apart from that, all good. Anyway, this podcast. Now, you probably clicked on it thinking, thank you, we're 35 minutes in. You haven't even talked about what this clickbait title was.
Yeah.
It was a little bit of clickbait.
What's the point?
What is the point in marking?
What is the point in marking?
And I suppose there's 2 strands to this. One, what is the literal, why do teachers mark?
Yep.
Like literally, why do they mark? Because there is a point to it. And the second one is, what is the point in marking?
Which if you're a teacher, you'll feel that one, I'm sure.
And it's a very popular view to have that it is completely pointless.
Yeah.
So we're going to dive into it.
Yeah.
So for anyone watching who's not a teacher and anyone who is a teacher, I want this to be quite useful because I think we have perspectives on marking.
Yeah.
And I think, again, a lot of people who aren't in teaching think, I remember secondary school more. And in secondary school, the teacher barely marked the books. You know, it was just like, of course, we've got crack in the assessments. Not saying secondary teachers don't mark, but it's much less intense for a primary school.
It's different, isn't it? Yeah.
So for an average week in a primary school, Hayden, I want you to lay out for people.
Yeah.
What would the average teacher have to mark and roughly how long?
So this is just normal. Some schools do different things, right? It's fine.
For traditional marking.
But traditional marketing, right? Marketing. Traditional marketing of your lessons.
Hayden's thinking of how to spread this podcast out.
Yeah. For traditional marking, right, you are going to be marking 3 lessons per day. That is the average. You're going to be marking maths, English, and something in the afternoon. That might even entail a bit more. But on average, 3 lessons a day will need marking. That's 32 books, likely to have 32 books, unless you're a school that's lucky enough to have sets where you might have like 24 in a set or 20 or even less. But generally, teachers across the country are marking 3 sets of 32 books in 3 different subjects every single day, give or take the odd afternoon where they might do something
Let's
else.
call it 80 books a day to be fair.
Yeah.
Because it drops off sometimes.
Yeah.
And some lessons you teach twice in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So it's 4 sets of 30 books.
And other times you don't teach a lesson that is in books.
So let's say it's 80 for the argument's sake.
Yeah.
Okay. And, marking, going through their work, checking it, ticking it.
Yeah.
All that good stuff. Realistically, traditionally, how long would a book take to mark?
Well, it does depend.
Exactly.
It does depend on what the subject is and also what every school has their own marking and feedback policy. So every school must have one. And depending on that policy could make dramatic changes to your workload. So again, bang average school probably expects, right, just really normal marking policy, that the work is looked at, everything that's been written is read over by you, and ticks or whatever their version of ticks in are put periodically through the work to show the child that you've acknowledged what they've done
and
it's correct. And if it's really blindingly incorrect, your job is to pick out those mistakes. And again, your policy might tell you to circle it and they have to correct it the next day. It might be just to fix the mistake for them so they can see it. So it's quite involved, particularly in English lessons, because obviously you write a lot in English. Yeah. So yeah, it takes a long time.
And there's different approaches, like you said, and it does depend school to school. But like thinking of like people, teachers complaining about marking, what amazes me is how different it can be school to school.
Yeah.
And I think as time's gone on and we really do try and approach workload in a way that's sensible and change attitudes, to me, marking's the easy one. Marking is the number one way that we can drastically improve well-being for teachers whilst minimally detrimenting any child's outcome.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to tell you now, I can count probably on one hand how many times I've thought.
That's 2 hands.
I can count on 2 hands in my career, honestly, where I thought that the time I spent marking was proportionate to the outcome from marking.
Yeah. I agree. I reckon 0 times for me. Genuinely 0 times. Because that doesn't mean that marking stuff is not useful. It just means that the time spent doing it.
Exactly. And the idea of marking, I think it should be changed to feedback. Because obviously this is the thing where we, do this podcast sometimes and say stuff. People must think we don't want to do anything as teachers. We obviously do. And it's obviously important that children know what they're doing, whether it's right, whether it's wrong, how they can fix it. But the traditional way of, at 5 p.m, sat in a classroom on my own, ticking a book and writing in a book, hoping that the child picks up something the next day when they have 10 seconds to read it before we get into
and they've just spent an hour trying to learn it. And then we're expecting them to correct all the mistakes they made by reading a little comment in their book that's written by you. It doesn't work. It never has, and it never will.
Oh, you guys, you've got to pick up every single time they miss a capital letter, you've got to circle it and tell them, oh, that's funny because I literally in person said to them 5 times during the lesson to remember that, and they still didn't. So is me writing in their book really going to trigger that for them?
It's a catch-22, because if it worked, you wouldn't be doing it for very long. Would you?
So
if it
true.
worked, then there you go, you'll never have to do that again. But why is it then that 4 years down the line we're still circling capital letters in the same children's books? If it hasn't worked for 4 years and helped them correct it, then it's obviously not going to work now. We need a different approach.
I completely agree. And you were talking earlier, Hayden, about this kind of move that a lot of schools have done towards whole class feedback. And again, I think there has to be a radical change, and this is where we can do it. Because I think if we radically change the time taken maybe to prepare lessons, that is going to have an adverse effect on outcomes, in my opinion. So unless, obviously, I'm not talking about, tweaking lessons you've already planned and put time into. I mean, if we say, oh, you know what, don't worry anymore.
Yeah, we don't plan lessons anymore.
Don't plan them, just go in and teach them stuff. Clearly, we're not going to cover the curriculum. Clearly, that will have a detrimental impact, in my opinion. Marking, I don't see it. No. This might be outlandish. I think that if I did not mark their books for a whole term, nothing would be different.
Yeah, me too. And
I'll tell you why. Nothing.
And I think most people will agree with this. Is because teaching is about feedback within the lesson.
Yes.
And if the idea of marking, right? Because some people will argue this. They'll say you need to mark the book so that you can find out what the kids can and can't do in the lesson.
I did the lesson.
That's something people say, though, isn't it?
I did the lesson.
And why is that wrong?
Because I did the lesson with them. So when I did the lesson with them, I found out what they can and can't do.
Yeah.
And I'm being perfectly honest here, right? There's almost nothing that I teach that I won't recap over and go over again anyway. So, there's very rare instances, but I think as teacher judgments, we can just be trusted to crack on with that, right?
Yeah.
Where, actually, no, they need targeted now, and it's because I've just read this. If it's generic stuff like capital letters in their writing, putting a full stop at the end, things I know they know what to do, by the way, that I'm not going to get anything out of writing it and telling them.
Yeah.
Because if you flick through their book, this is weird. You've done this every single time and followed this policy to the T, and they still can't do it.
Yeah.
So that's not what is the point of marking? What is the point of marking? Is it to help them improve? It's not doing that.
Yeah.
Is it so they know where they're going wrong? I'm already doing that verbally because I'm a teacher. And if someone's not, of course I tell them to do that.
Do you think it helps no children? Like there are zero children that are benefiting from having stuff written in their books?
So okay, look at it this way. Are there children out there who, having something written in their book, they will read it and understand it and act on it? Yes, of course there are. Okay. Is it a majority of children? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
It is a small minority of children.
Yeah.
And I think, again, if we're looking at the holistic approach of how we can hit the most children the best way possible through giving feedback, individual comments in books is not going to do it.
Yeah.
And I think if you've got that child, imagine this situation. Any child, in my opinion, who is getting something out of individual feedback in their book will have already got it from my verbal feedback.
Yeah.
So there's that child who doesn't get it from me telling them, but does from their book, doesn't exist.
Here's the way I see it from a time perspective, right? Yeah. If I spend an hour teaching a lesson, genuinely, I'm not making this up or exaggerating for those that are not in the teaching world, it would probably take, on average, 1-to-1 amount of time to mark a lesson that you taught. It would take me an hour to mark a set of English books that I've just taught for an hour. If I've done a writing lesson for an hour, it will take me an hour, if not more,
it's only 2 minutes
to mark them, right? Now, I don't think that the impact from the second hour, the hour in which I marked, is anywhere near the impact that I would have on those children and their learning and their development in that hour of teaching.
That's such a good
point.
But
we spend the same amount of time doing it. So I'm like, okay, 95% of the learning and impact and development of those children comes from me teaching them, me in the classroom as a professional who knows what they're doing and giving them constant feedback on the go, right? Delivering the lesson, adapting how I do things on the go and giving them verbal feedback. 5%, I would say, of what develops that children and helps them learn comes from whatever I do in their book afterwards. Yet we spend equal time on it. That's the way I see
5%
it.
5% is generous.
Yeah. Okay, that is generous. But being in year 6, I do see I get the outliers. Because being in year 6, I teach a really, really great set of English, of kids in English, okay? So like kids that are just really good at English. And those children some of those children, not even all of them, some of those children really do respond. I can write them like a whole sentence in their book. of how they should maybe have rethought about a paragraph or something, and they will understand it, and they will read it, and they'll actually have a go at like doing that thing. And for those kids, I'm like, okay, that's cool, that's fine. Also, I could have just said it to them though, so I didn't need to write that. I'm just saying that at least for some kids, it does have an impact. But I don't think it's worth the time in general when I could have spent an hour planning a really good lesson instead.
Exactly.
And thinking about the feedback I'm going to deliver to them all the next day, and maybe jotting down on a Post-it note instead, just a couple of names with one word summary next to them for me, just to remind me tomorrow, speak to that kid. Yeah. Speak to that kid about this thing, and then you can actually show them live in front of them in their book. You know, I think that's better.
I completely agree with you. And there is this attitude towards marking. And I've heard this from teachers before, and it's maybe it's a hangover from when we were younger. And we took our books home at the end of the year. And I know for a fact there is some anxiety about sending books home, or adults or parents seeing books and there's no marking. There's no traditional marking. Because from an outside point of view, if you don't see those ticks in a book, you think that I don't understand what's going on. And that's as simplistic as it gets, because you're not in the profession. You don't understand that that's a very small part of how we assess your child. But there is still a hangover from teachers who know that marking doesn't have much of an impact, who still think it's important to do because of the optics of it, of sending the book home, or thinking Ofsted might come in, or a visitor might come in and flick through. And there is this idea that if we don't see teacher pen in the book, that it's automatically bad teaching, no assessments going on, you don't know how your kids are getting on. And that needs to disappear.
We have become obsessed with evidence in teaching. I don't know how long it's been like this, because it's been like this the whole time I've been doing it. But it is obsessive. This idea of, unless something is evidenced on paper, it simply didn't happen. And that is just the way this career works.
Do you know what the ultimate example of that is?
Go on.
Verbal feedback stamp.
Oh, yeah.
What do you mean I have to stamp the book to say I gave verbal feedback? That's my job. That is literally my job. Like, my job is to literally verbally feedback to the children.
Let's do a poll. Let's do a poll. Guys, if you're listening to this, go and vote in the poll right now. Have you ever worked, or do you work in a school where when you have to evidence verbal feedback that you've given? So like a really pointless extra step just to prove that you did it.
And again, do you know what that suggests? Books that don't have that stamp in, you didn't talk to that kid. It's like, oh my goodness. And I get it, because there's nuance, and people might say, verbal feedback goes where you directly, explain this misconception to someone. So but again, me putting that in as a stamp or not doesn't change whether I did it. Like, I either did it or I didn't.
It's the optics though, isn't it? Like you said.
Exactly, the optics. It's like,
realistically, they care more about, if someone sees that in the book, they're less likely to judge.
And do you know what ends up happening?
So it doesn't matter if it's real.
Ends up happening? Because I'm going to be perfectly honest, I've done it a couple of times.
What? Let me guess. People just put it in when they haven't done it.
Put it in when they haven't done it.
Oh, haven't put a verbal feedback stamp in a while. Blip.
Because, I know someone's going to pick me up for not doing a verbal feedback sticker. I know for a fact that I talked to this kid. So when I'm marking it later, I go, okay, verbal feedback.
There you go. Verbal, I did that.
Because I know I did it.
Dumb.
And it's just another one of those exercises as a teacher where you do it and you think, what are we doing to ourselves? We are obsessed with it. And the other thing with evidence, going further here in terms of, I guess it's not marking, but, we can't possibly have a lesson where nothing's in the book. Can't possibly do that. We have to put in the book that we did a lesson where nothing was in the book. We have to put
a picture in to show that they were
Did you do anything in the book that day? No, we just did something in the book to say we did nothing in the book. What? So what?
You could have. It's a thing.
Sorry, you got the. How many lessons have you done when it's like practical, or you're literally doing something where you just happen to not be in the book? Because, newsflash, you can learn without writing in a book. So how many times have you done, and you've not actually got the book out of the box? Never.
No.
Because the book always comes out, and it's so funny, because I always joke with my kids. Like, right, kids, we're going to write in the book today that we're not using the book. And they're like, what? And I'm like, yep, exactly. We need to make sure everyone knows we're not using the book today, so let's get the books out.
Otherwise, what might they think, kids? They might think we've gone down the cinema again and had some macaroni and cheese.
I know. Like, come on, honestly. If you see a date missing, guess what? I was doing something not in the book. There's your evidence. Where's the lack of? That's my evidence that I was in the book today.
And you knew I was in the class. In one of my first years of teaching, when we were at the same school, I was pulled up for just something to do with, I can't remember what it was, but something to do with marking, of this isn't in your book, or that's not in the books, or this isn't very clear, something about my marking not being good enough in the books. I remember just sat there with really, really, really good data, thinking, Okay, at which point do I show them the outcomes, or do they not matter?
Right.
And it was like, yeah, they don't matter.
No.
In that moment, they didn't matter, because the only thing that SLT were interested in at that moment was the optics of the book and how they looked and how they might be interpreted. It didn't matter that my kids had absolutely smashed these tests recently and got really good data that I was really proud of and like really hoping to show off.
Oh, no. Here's a list of things you've done wrong.
Didn't mark the book, didn't do that properly. It's like, yeah, well, it doesn't matter, does it? Because they clearly learned. Here's the proof that they actually learned, not the marking in the book. Yeah, but this teacher's got 17 peer assessment stamps in, and they've got 12 verbal feedback stamps. Well, okay, but their data's rubbish.
Oh, man.
So but that matters more. Okay. So bring it back. Let's bring it back around, because we're already going off on a moany one. Yeah. So what can we do? Like what is good marking? Because Dylan said at the start, marking and feedback to the children is obviously vital. We're not sat here saying, yeah, just scrap marking, another thing we don't need to do. We're saying scrap marking in its current form, because it takes up an unbelievable amount of time and has an unbelievably small impact, but replace it with something better. Maybe something that we already naturally do all the time. So Dylan, what would your solution be? It's your imaginary school now.
I'm going to simplify this, right? I'm going to really simplify this. And I'm going to go back to what we want the children to get out of it, okay?
Okay.
So I want the children to know and understand what they've done well and what they can do better.
Yep.
If the children understand that, and I give them an opportunity to act on it and be taught something again or practice something again, that is the goal achieved. So I think with marking, what we have to do as a profession is start at the end goal. Okay? I know how the children are getting on. They know how they're getting on, and we can work towards filling those gaps and reminders, etc., and I can build that into my teaching.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we have to work backwards from that and say, okay, what kind of feedback policy will help that be put in place? And I think really strong verbal communication as a professional, which happens anyway. I think really strong planning, because that we know in the first place that this is being addressed. Reacting to what we, having taught our class, know that there are general weaknesses, and reacting to that and putting it in place so they can practice it again the next day, and having a really strong line of communication with your children in a much more effective way, which is simply talking to them and acting on that in lesson. Now, do I think we should still mark stuff? Actually, yes. I think it's still good. I think it's always more powerful to mark with the children in class. Yeah. Because at that point, they're there, they see what they did wrong. You can literally explain it to them. I think it works a lot better in maths, and we literally do that in maths, where not only is it you can mark with the children, the policy is you should be marking with the children, because you can immediately address instant feedback, and then any children who really didn't understand that day, you can do an intervention with them straight away. And that's it. That's all you need. Okay, and will you have a cursory look at the books? Of course I will, because I want to check presentation. I want to make sure actually, I noticed a few children were marking it incorrectly, and I'm going to teach them how to mark, or I'll mark it with them in the lesson while everyone else is maybe marking.
But how long does that take?
Not long, like minutes.
Yeah, minutes. Like a flick through the books, right?
Flick through the books. What, per book?
That's what I'm saying. Like
at this point in my career right now, I can spend 10 seconds looking at a maths book and know what misconceptions are and how they're getting on. Yeah. It might be when I was an ECT, maybe that was 45 seconds a minute. Yeah. Okay. Really looking through, but genuinely right now, having experience, knowing what the objective was for that lesson, knowing the weaknesses of the class, knowing the weaknesses of the child, because I talk to them every single day and I teach them, I can look at a book in 15 seconds.
So you're telling me you don't need to write a positive comment in that book, followed by a verbal feedback sticker, and...
Because you know what I'll do?
What?
I'll be really nice to them in real life. And they'll appreciate it more.
You'll give them positive feedback.
Because you know what happens sometimes, especially lower down in the school?
We speak.
What does this say in my book? So I've written it and I have to go and tell them it anyway.
Yeah.
So I could have just told them it.
Yeah.
Could have just said, couldn't I? What does this say? Oh, that says you must remember to actually write down your sentences next time.
A lot of schools have come up with ways. You know how like children don't read the feedback, and a lot of schools have come up with ways where it's like, okay, right, to make the kids, to ensure they read it, they have to read it and then like they have to either answer it or put their initials next to like that comment. What's your thought on that?
So funny because a big part of our marking policy, and again I think it's a good thing, is you might have like generic next steps for children, like as a class after this lesson that I taught you, quite a lot of us forgot to use a mark for a question. So I know the next day as a whole class we're gonna go through this together, but always with this kind of approach of whole class, you're going to get 2, 3 or 4 who kind of have their own like really adamant that comes first. ignore questions because you literally, maybe you weren't forming your letters
unique
properly.
bit of feedback.
Yeah, it's really unique.
Not really relevant to everybody else.
Yeah, and it's more pressing.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not like, you could add flair and detail to your work. Okay, fine, but let's practice this still. It's like, there's a more pressing issue.
Yeah.
And I want to work with you guys. I think with those guys, it's important to give them specific next steps.
Yeah.
But again, you'll be going to work with them. Do you know what I mean? You won't just be leaving them to do something. I just think you can hit things like that much more easily with generic next steps, understanding your children. You don't need to individually write in the book. I just don't think that's necessary.
Yeah. Do you know what I would do in my imaginary school? And I think it relies on something that just doesn't exist in our profession anymore, which is trust. It just doesn't though, does it? Like there really is no trust in our profession anymore. Like teacher assessments went out the window years ago. Nothing is teacher assessed anymore.
What do you mean? Because
sorry, as in like actual like SATs and stuff.
Right.
It's not teacher assessments. Like no one cares what the teachers. We still have to
Writing?
do these. We still have to do. Yeah, that's about the only one, and even that still. Still typically goes through some sort of moderation.
And all the
schools.
foundation subjects are teacher assessed.
Yeah, but the government don't really care.
Yeah, it's true.
They
it's
don't.
true.
They care about that's not published. They don't care
true.
about that. They only care about the one that's not. That's my point.
They only care about it when they're making you feel like rubbish because you're not done it properly.
Yeah,
and send off
that one teachers assess. Oh, we don't care about that one then. Yeah. Is this one done in an exam? Brilliant.
That's a good.
You know,
point.
so like anyway. So I think trust has just gone out the window really with teaching. So what I would do if I was in charge and I could, and you know, I had,
God help us.
I've employed my teachers and I trust them because I've
Would you hire
employed
me?
them. Well, yeah, of course I would. Is I would say to them, and it's not really a good policy because it's not black and white, but I would say to them, if you feel like by the end of you teaching that lesson, you already know what you need to teach next lesson, as in you've just gone around and you've looked at their work, you've helped them, you've discussed with them, and you already picked up what the next steps are generally for your next lesson, you don't need to open the books and start writing that in them. There you go. You don't have to mark that lesson. If you get to the end of a lesson, however, and you think it would be worth your time to flick through the books and just check because you don't feel confident that so-and-so and so-and-so and all these people over here, you're not actually too sure. Maybe you didn't really get to see them much in the lesson. You're not too sure if they got it or not. Then flick through the books. And if you want to mark them, you can. If you want to just take a Post-it note to remind you of something to say tomorrow, that's fine. Like, I just wish we had this trust system of, you're a teacher, your job is literally to get the best progress out of them. So of course you care about what they've done in the lesson. You don't need to mark everything, but it might still have a place sometimes.
So in your imaginary school,
how
would you combat, and we don't like saying this, there will be teachers who completely take advantage of that.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
So how would you combat that without putting in place some kind of stringent policy?
I just think measure the progress. So I think it's straightforward, honestly. Like if kids are making, we know what average progress.
But how would you do that? Would you pick up a book and look at it?
No, I look at that. As in, I look at like
writing. Let's say
writing.
Okay, so let's say it's English writing.
Yeah,
because that's a really one where feedback I think is incredibly important.
Yeah, sure.
So we want to make sure that trust is great, and for 90% of it'll be brilliant. But there's someone who just isn't picking up on those basics, and you know, you as SLT have no way of knowing.
How do I identify it?
So how would you identify it? Because if your answer is you pick up and look at the book, you're saying that your staff, your teacher doesn't even have to do that. But you're going to then do that to judge.
But that's different. So moderation to me is different. So I still believe in having like periods, set times across the year where we assess. We just assess children and we measure progress, right? And that has to happen for all the subjects.
As a group.
Yeah. Everyone does.
All the classes.
When it comes to writing, I think, because it's such a different subject. Like with maths, it can be a test.
Yeah.
With GPS, it can be a test. Reading can be a test. With writing, it can't really be a test. It probably could, but it just isn't these days.
No.
I think we just go to what we do for that one. And I just think we have maybe at Christmas, Easter, summer, there's just a moderation, and we sit down as a staff team and we moderate writing and we look. And that's how as SLT I'd identify whether I'm thinking something's going wrong in a class. And at that point, you'd have to get involved. Maybe that trust has been broken. At that point, things will change because at the end of the day, you trusted that teacher, and if they've broken your trust, then other things are going to have to be put in place now that you wouldn't want to have in your normal culture. But I think for the teachers that are just trustworthy and doing the right thing, I think it is enough to just look at the progress every 2 terms and just see if those kids are heading in the right direction. We have so much data on children nowadays. It's very easy to spot if a child starts going off track. Really easy to spot that. I don't know. I think that'd be enough.
So, do you think that as primary staff, do you think it would be a good idea, a good payoff? Like we've been saying, the whole thing's about payoff. We don't want to give too much detriment to the children at all. Do you think, obviously, reducing what we write in the books is obviously a really quick way to lower that? Do you think literally how long will you go without looking at the book would be acceptable to you? Right, even looking at it? Because, for example, I'd say every single lesson, I always look at their work. I always look at it, and I might give it a cursory tick if we marked it together, or I might not even do anything if we marked it together. I might just highlight it. What would you say? Would you be happy if all week of history, the teacher's not even looked at the book?
I think the second that, in my imaginary world here, the second that a number gets put to that, then the system's failed already.
But every day would just be like the standard.
Yep.
So you would take away every day, and you'd say meh.
Yeah, I literally wouldn't monitor it. If I'm in the perfect scenario, right, where all my teachers are trustworthy, right, so I'm not got someone trying to take advantage. Doesn't matter. It's literally irrelevant to me.
I suppose
2 weeks, fine. 3 days, fine. It is just, but the point
is, do you think that's realistic?
Yeah, because I think the point is...
Imagine, you said it's the best situation when...
okay,
everyone's trustworthy, but is that realistic?
I thought you meant realistic in my imagination.
No.
Yeah. So is it realistic? Yeah, because I'm living here, and I forgot that it's not real. I don't know.
Because I'm really stringently agreeing with you. I don't think that's realistic, and I think we have to be realistic sometimes and cut some slack to people who put these things in place, because I think they start off very much like, okay, well, we need to just make sure that things are being done properly. I think very, very, very rarely does it start maliciously, like, I'm going to waste teachers' time.
But the problem is it always then just slits back down. It's just a slippery slope immediately back down into evidencing. It just goes back down, and then you know what happens? I've been there. I've been there at multiple schools where the best intention has started something, right? And it's lasted a matter of months before SLTs start twitching because there's just not enough. They just don't know if their teachers are doing it.
Good point.
And then suddenly it's, you know that feedback you've been given? I tell you what, rather than just giving it, would you mind just writing it on this sheet? Yeah. Just typing it up and saving it in this folder. And I tell you what, I've been looking at that sheet, and it would be nice, wouldn't it? As long with that feedback, if you did this and this and this, and then you listed the top 5 and the bottom 5 children as well. And I tell you what, and then it's just something else. And then suddenly doing this like feedback to the class becomes a 35-minute job after school where you have to type something up for SLT. Yeah. And it's like, that's how long it would have taken me to mark the books. So I think it always slips back down. I think the only way it's going to work is with complete trust. And you need a really, really, really strong SLT team who go into classrooms all the time and are like really involved with their teachers and start like actually supporting them all the time. Who, in the same way that me with my class of 32, I'm constantly assessing the children in my class, and I'm knowing where they all are, and I'm knowing who's falling behind, and I'm knowing who's doing a good job. I think SLT should be doing the same thing with their staff team. They are our managers. They should be supporting us and being involved, and they should know. I think our SLT should be able to tell us, like, someone should be able to question them and say, what's Hayden's maths teaching like? What's his progress been like? Are his kids engaging? What they doing? I think they should be able to answer that question. In the same way I should be able to answer the same question about a child in my class. Yeah. And I think that should be enough. A good SLT team should be able to say to the teachers, give feedback, make progress. We're not going to look in your books unless we feel the need to, unless something's arisen because we've been in your rooms and we've noticed that children are jumping on desks.
But then SLT will be looking in books more often than the teachers are based on that policy.
Yeah, that's fine.
But then what are SLT going to see in the book, which is more important that the teacher will?
Well, just little things like if they saw the children weren't behaving right, and they're worried that the teacher was...
That's separate though, right?
Yeah, this is different, exactly. Right. So they're not looking for the same reason as like marking and feedback. They might just be checking it, just to make sure like are the kids achieving anything.
So you wouldn't say to check the book for progress?
I'd say use the assessment points for that.
Okay, but how does we're going on here? But I want to dive in. How would a teacher get accurate assessment points for each individual child without literally looking at their work?
For like the test, that's what I'm saying.
No, but like English writing.
Oh, okay, keep
no, writing. I'm thinking of English writing this whole time because that's the ultimate marking thing. Like that's what takes longest for marking. Sure. Like, so for sure, like history then. History. How can we know where a child is on their chronological awareness or their ability to explain the community aspect of the history or the invasion or anything like that?
Yeah, it's a good point.
Without looking at the work.
It depends what you do. Like I know at our school we have like an end of unit. Essentially, it's not a test, but we do like a task at the end, which is like a summary of all our knowledge. Look at that one. But that goes back to my original point was if you think you need to look at the books to get an assessment. I'm not saying never look at the books. My point was, if you get to the end of a lesson and you feel like you will gain nothing from looking at the books, then don't waste your time. If you feel like that you should look at the books because maybe you've missed something or you just want to check to see if you've missed something, then you should. Just when it comes to history, it's like maybe you'll teach the first 4 lessons. And you don't need to look at the book any point in those ones because you're happy within the lessons. You know what people have got.
And you can look at more than one lesson at a time.
Yeah. But when it comes to an assessment point, which is, we legally have to do that, then maybe it is wise then at the end of that unit to do something where you say, right, actually, I am going to look and mark this one because it's specific to this situation. I do need to know how they've got on, and that's my assessment. I just think that there's the trust, to say...
And mark with the kids.
Yeah, always
mark with the kids.
Yeah, because that's going to be a great way for you not to have a look at the books because you can just see straight away.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I hope that summarizes.
No, it's definitely. I'm digging because this is imaginary school, but I think it's so easy for people like us, and we do it all the time. We'll think something's wrong, and then we'll go down this idealistic route of what it should be.
Yeah.
I just think with marking, I think there's always going to be this accountability.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but I wouldn't know how to tackle when it wasn't going the way I wanted it to go.
Yeah.
I like if we give all that complete freedom, which is great for 99% of teachers. If I was SLT and there was 30 children who were under my care literally because a teacher wasn't doing something properly, and I just say, well, I just trust them, but they weren't doing it. I can see there how let's just have this, at least a set of rules that we have to follow to give feedback properly.
I think my response to that whole point of that analogy about like teachers maybe taking advantage, right, of that system and then seeing it as a way not to do it.
Not doing it well. Even trying to do it, but it's not good.
Let's just think, just because it's kind of separate, but like the specific example of someone being like, oh, I can get away with not doing either, like not really taking any feedback in the lesson and just not marking ever. I think my reply to someone saying that, if it was like SLT saying that's why we shouldn't do it, I'd say, okay, well, does the current system work then? Do you get no one taking advantage? Do you get no one doing a bad job or marking correctly? The same people will just abuse the system. Like they just won't mark correctly anyway. Those same people are the ones that will look at the book, put 4 strategically placed ticks in places, and
write VF
and write VF somewhere and put a sticker somewhere but not really taking anything in because they're just trying to get it done. They want to go. They're not interested in marking.
And the more stringent and intensive the marking policy, the less I mark properly, because I'm like, oh my god, okay, well I've got to check this and this and this and this and this. Okay, I'm going to make it look okay. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it does.
And then I just look at what I think is actually the useful thing and for my own benefit.
Yeah.
And I'm just like jumping through hoops.
So you're already doing my thing.
Yeah, completely.
You're already doing my thing. Yeah. You're looking for the bit that's useful to you to give you actual assessment, and you're playing ball by doing the completely pointless bit that takes up 3 hours. So,
well, there you go. What's the point in marking, eh?
Yeah. What do you guys think? Write us in. What do you think?
I know what most people think.
In your made-up school, what is it? What's the marking policy? What's the feedback policy in yours?
That's like a future podcast we do. It's just like our imaginary school. We'll just build this school.
I do want to do that.
Yeah,
I've mentioned that before.
Yeah, it's my idea.
It'd be quite fun. It's your idea now. Yeah, I love how you got. I've mentioned that to you off this podcast, and he's just said it on the podcast. So now everyone's going to think it's a good idea, wouldn't it?
Really good idea. If we get some hymns and you fill in the blanks. That was my favourite thing I've ever seen.
Oh god, that's a lot there.
I'm literally, I'm here right now, looking forward to listening to that bit again. Because people had the best time for half an hour, then they listen to you go on about marking.
I want to know if you agree or not, because like Dylan said, we do get into we go down these little thought trains, and there's probably
I hate it.
We missed.
That is the one thing that makes me resent the job the most, is when I'm sat knowing that I've got 90 books to get through, and I'm like, and 95% of this is completely irrelevant.
Yeah, you're not going to get home now for 2 more hours,
and nothing will change.
No better outcomes for the kids. And no information for you that you didn't already know.
Yeah.
90% of the time.
So, guys, moral of this story is: what's the point in marking?
Not much, really.
All right.
Okay. No, you thought you wanted to say something. What's the point in marking? I don't know. But what is the point in marking? Or the point of marking really should be to be providing children with feedback.
Say point of marking one more time.
The point of marking
is why don't you mark this podcast out of 5 stars?
I'd probably give it 4.9. Would you?
Oh God, give us a 5-star review, please. Jeez.
Oh, I hope not just disgruntled SLT members that love marking policies are watching this today.
I love writing things down in books that aren't read properly.
1 star.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway.
We've got to wrap it up because we were going on for quite a way.
It's been a while. Over an hour.
Hot again.
Hot.
When will that end?
Yeah. Right.
Hopefully
Sandy,
soon.
we'll see you next week.